sounds great, Dr. Garry.
And I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Dr. Garry Jennings.
Dr. J is not the other Dr. J, the basketball player, but you can call him Dr. J.
Yeah, I'm the poor doctor.
Okay, well, we'll get back. That's another show. Urban Healthy 2.0 is the show that feeds your mind, body, and spirit. And we are addressing all three today, and we have a very, very special guest. We have Dr. Helen Holton, and I'm going to read her bio because I can't memorize it because she is so accomplished. So Dr. Holton is a 21-year veteran of the Baltimore City Council. She has been making laws that enrich our community for 21 years, and she continues to do that. She has a passion for making our communities better. She is now leading the National Organization of Counties as executive.
Black county officials.
I'm sorry, the National Organization of County Officials.
Black.
Of Black county officials. Okay, well, we have to correct that anyway. The National Organization of Black County Officials. She is the executive director. As a Gallup certified strengths coach, her niche is strengths, resilience, and leadership. Her expertise lives in the intercultural perspective of local issues with global impact, focused at the intersection of race, gender, political power, and privilege. And that is the intersection where we are right now. Yes, she's also a minister. So her perspective is so multicultural and so multidimensional that we are really, really fortunate to have her. So welcome, Dr. Helen Holton.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I love hanging out with you guys. We just have so much fun while we're being relevant in our conversations. And I just think that what we're doing now is where we need to be, that's going to make a difference and help move people forward. And so I thank you for the opportunity to be here once again, to hang out with you guys, talk health, wealth, Black Lives Matter, epidemics, pandemics, you know, whatever.
Whatever. Now, one of the things, speaking of epidemics and pandemics, you know, you and I have discussed this frequently, we're in the midst of two pandemics. Actually, we're in the midst of several, but the pandemic of COVID-19 and then the pandemic of racism. And we want to also just address the issue, because I know that's a passion of yours, Dr. Holton. The HIV National Testing Day is coming up. And we want to make sure that that message is not lost in all the other stuff that's going on in the world, because HIV has been an epidemic for many, many years. And, you know, when the news stories come on and it's like the new shiny object, you know, and I'm not saying that these are shiny objects, but we have pandemic after pandemic, epidemic, and in our communities, you know, they pile up. So we don't want the HIV initiative to get lost in this. So can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So we know that the epidemic, the global epidemic of HIV has been going on. It hit the United States in 1984. Wow. And the reality of where it is right now is that Black people, African Americans, are the #1 fastest growing group across all categories. Leading are same gender loving men. But when you look at some of the violence and outbreaks that are occurring, it still comes back to Black people being at the bottom of the barrel. Just celebrating yesterday, Juneteenth Day. Once again, a reminder to us that what we're up against, we've been up against since 1619 in America. And so it hasn't diminished in a way that we think. And Marilyn and Garry, you know, 5 years ago, we were right here at this place when Freddie Gray died in police custody.
Absolutely.
So it's what I've been sharing with folks that I work with. If we don't evolve, we will repeat. And we are repeating the same messages from Emmett Till to George Floyd. And what's important to remember is that these individuals have been tipping points, pointing us in a direction of opportunity to press for equity, equality, inclusion in a nation that we have built on our backs.
Literally on our backs. I love that term. If we don't evolve, we will repeat. I mean, really, if we don't evolve.
And I like what you said about the evolution that we have to do, because that does give us some power in changing our behavior. Our behavior has to evolve. And we need to take this as a jump off point to start that change and not let us slip back into the ways that have essentially stagnated us. I mean, you said Emmett Till, that was 50 some odd years ago.
Absolutely. It was Oscar Grant in the 80s in Oakland. It was Michael Brown.
It goes on and on.
Speak their names. Their names are too numerous for us to mention and not leave someone out. But when you think about Martin Luther King Jr., that was a part of the very thing. Whatever they will do, they believe that death will silence us, but it is in our living that we must lift our voices. And so the whole point about next Saturday, a week from today, is National HIV Testing Day. It's an opportunity for us to focus on living. The challenge without knowing our status is that if you find out late in the game that you have it, you may be closer to AIDS than to HIV. HIV is no longer the death sentence that it once was.
Right.
As is being Black is not a death sentence, though there are those in this country that would want us to believe it is. And so I am encouraged by the protesters, by the messaging. And yes, people are beginning to talk more about racial equality. And for me, it's more than racial equality, it's racial equity.
Indeed.
Without equity, we're no closer to equality.
on equity on so many levels. Go ahead, Dr. Jennings. Dr. J, go
You
ahead.
said something about you may be closer to HIV than AIDS. Can
No, you may be
explain that
closer
for our
to
listeners?
AIDS than HIV. And the distinction is this.
Yeah.
When you're infected, you don't immediately have AIDS, you have HIV. If you are detected early, you can get into treatment. And treatment today can suppress your viral load so that HIV is undetectable, which means you're not able to transmit the HIV virus.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't get tested, if you don't know your status, and you're living with HIV and you think you have, oh, I must have diabetes. Oh, maybe it's my hypertension, and you don't get tested and no one's checking, then and it evolves to AIDS, then you're on a path of death. Because neither have a cure, but by the time you get to AIDS, it's so much more difficult to suppress, to get you to a place of living. And so testing is just essential to living, like many other things. And by the way, HIV is not the only disease without a cure, as we've talked about before. I mean, right now, coronavirus doesn't have a cure. Herpes doesn't have a cure. They have treatments, but no cure. Sure. And so what makes HIV stand out so much more? And I will say, in a word, it's stigma. You know, we don't like to talk about anything that doesn't sound pretty or pleasant.
The word is what?
Makes people stigma.
Stigma, absolutely.
Stigma. The big
going to get tested.
Well, stigma that keeps us from getting tested, stigma that keeps us from talking about how we live, educating one another, protecting our community. So I look at coronavirus, you look at how many people when this started out said, oh, well, Black people don't get corona because of ABC, XYZ. Yeah, we do. And where are the largest number of infections and deaths right now?
Absolutely.
In our community. So as I started, it's all connected. Whether, you know, it's HIV, whether it's corona, whether it's poverty, you know, whether it's unemployment. Let's look at those first line workers that didn't have the luxury of working at home. The majority of them look like us. Black and brown people who are told, no, you can't stay home. Or if you don't come to work, you're going to be fired. Not giving them proper protection equipment, PPE. You know, all of this points to why Black Lives Matter. Did a podcast, did a conversation live a couple weeks ago about race, place, and social change. And one of the things that came up, someone said, well, all lives matter. And I said, you know what, stop, don't say that. Because until Black lives matter, no lives matter.
Yeah,
because
but you know, that's
we're
what
part of that all.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are being targeted, brutalized, murdered, killed just by being Black, how does that justify saying all lives matter?
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
if all lives matter, then prove it.
Well,
you can't if Black lives don't matter. And clearly, this world has demonstrated on more than one occasion that Black lives don't matter.
Absolutely. I mean, right up until today. Actually, you know, in terms of the All Lives Matter things, before we came on the show, I was looking at something on the TV station where there's a Trump rally, clearly today, the day after Juneteenth, okay, which is so completely disrespectful. And he takes credit for having made Juneteenth a thing, but we all know, and we are going to fight for the fact that it needs to be a national holiday, a federal holiday, by the way. But yes, they were taking someone away just because she had on a Black Lives Matter shirt. This woman had a ticket to the Trump rally. She made sure that she was covered legally. She had a ticket to the Trump rally. She was sitting outside the Trump rally with a Black Lives Matter t-shirt on. And it was a white woman. And they arrested her. It's like the whole pieces of the world, hopefully most of our country knows that Black Lives Matter. Okay. And
no, they don't. That's the problem. They don't. And that's why these protests, federal legislation, local resolutions, all of that has got to point to and call it out for what it is. We want to
Absolutely.
dance around and make nice a reality that's killing us.
Absolutely. It is killing us on so many levels. And again, with the HIV epidemic, I mean,
HIV economically,
proportionately, right, exactly.
economically, health-wise, you know, it begins with a conversation. To what extent are we teaching our children? To what extent, when we go to the doctors, do we ask the doctor when they're doing the lab work, did you include an HIV test?
Yeah. Exactly.
They don't arbitrarily do it, but they want to know about hypertension and diabetes and all these other things.
But you need to ask them specifically for that test.
And again, you go back to changing our behavior. We have to evolve. And as you said, I mean, that comes in, you have to get tested. You have to wear a condom for, just for HIV. You have to put your mask on. You have to at least do 6 feet away from each other. That's for COVID, and then, racism, I guess you got to watch your back, but.
Well, we've always had to.
Yes, you always have to watch your
back. We've always had to do that.
Yeah,
but it's the other.
To change our behavior.
Yes. But it goes back to the reality that for me, as a Black woman, what I know is that without my health, it doesn't matter how much wealth I want to work towards creating and making possible, because if I don't have my health, I'm not going to be around to do that.
Yeah, it's true. On Urban Health, we used to say your good health is worth all your money.
All of it, because what will you do without it?
Yeah. Well, we can't be there to push this movement forward if we're not here. But with that being said, as you so aptly pointed out, they think that they're going to quiet us by killing us, but even with those who have died, like with George Floyd, let's say, that has sparked an amazing worldwide movement that is going to move this initiative forward. We need to make legislative changes, which is also why I so have appreciated the work that you have done for 21 years in the city council. And I know that those laws are in place and they will not change. So that's something that's your legacy. That's part of your legacy. I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you so much for that. It truly was a labor of love, of community, and recognizing that we have to do better if we want to be better.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen just by thinking or wishing or willing it to change. We are the change we've been waiting for, and we need to step up. Right now, even as we're on this call, the Poor People's Campaign has launched a movement all day today on the back of the Juneteenth to talk about the impact of poverty. And the reality is this, like HIV, like COVID, poverty, it doesn't care what your race is.
Right.
It doesn't care what your gender is. It doesn't care what your sexual orientation is. What changes it is how you are actively engaged in it.
Indeed.
To have it be a step up and not a killer.
And not a killer.
A step ahead. Yeah.
And not a killer. In fact, going back to the HIV conversation as opposed to AIDS, I just want to make clear to everyone. First of all, when is National HIV testing?
Next Saturday, June 27th. In fact, it is June 27th every year. That is the day of National HIV Testing Day. So I'll tell you this little sidebar story. When I have my annual physical, and usually, which is usually in the winter months, well, for HIV Testing Day, I'm always out somewhere live getting an HIV test to show people just how easy it is, and it only takes a couple seconds to do. In fact, OraSure is the first organization that got approved in 2012, I believe it was, for an in-home HIV test. And it's funny, I said, let me go see how easy it is to get that. You can go to Walmart and pick up a cell. Yeah. It's called OraQuick. And in 10 to 20 minutes.
How do you spell that?
OraQuick. So look, I even went and took a picture of it, printed out the page that you can see, OraQuick. And I said, wow, it's an HIV home kit that's been approved by the FDA. It takes minutes. So if you can have it I think you can have it mailed to you, but you know, the point being,
Yes.
it's available. And so let us not let ignorance and stigma keep us from living.
Indeed, indeed.
Is it covered by your insurance or you have to pay?
No, you go get it right off the shelf. It's like $39.
She's saying it's something you don't need a prescription for.
No, you don't. You can go to Walmart, Walgreens, Rite Aid. I mean, it's a whole list of stores that, and even Amazon. So no, you don't need a script. Thank goodness, because it's the test. Now, once you take the test, if it, you know, and they tell you all the, you know what I'm talking, that you can't rely on it, guarantee, you know, so if you
it's not a guaranteed outcome.
If you had unprotected sex last night and you say, oh, I might have HIV, let me go get that kit and test it and make sure I don't, that's too soon.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
You know that, you know, maybe it's been a month and you're like, you know, maybe you watch this podcast and you say, wow, let me go and just check it out.
Mm-hmm.
So that whatever your result is, the fact that it's brought you to the place to care enough about living,
right, to even have the acknowledgement and the awareness of the fact that needs to be done. And another point I want to make clear, and I want you to help me with this, is so we were talking about the difference between HIV and AIDS, right? Because there's a lot of misconception out there about, okay, if I have HIV, I have AIDS. HIV is like, for lack of a better term, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the precursor to AIDS. Is that
exactly? You're going to contract HIV before you have full-blown AIDS.
Okay.
If you aren't getting tested and you're living with HIV and you don't know it,
you're
not doing the things to live.
Yeah.
So it's just like PrEP, you know, so you have people, oh, I'm going to get on PrEP. Well, guess what? Before a doctor will prescribe PrEP for you, which you do need a prescription for, you've got to test negative for HIV.
Yeah, and let me just stop you right there, because I'm looking at the information that I pulled up on PrEP. And people may or may not know what PrEP is, but did you know that there's a daily pill that can prevent HIV? Yes, there's PrEP. It's a form of HIV prevention. When taken every day, can help protect you from HIV. But PrEP means pre-exposure prophylaxis.
Yep,
That's
exactly.
PrEP for pre-exposure prophylactics. So
now take in mind, and this is an important distinction. You do need a prescription for PrEP, but here's the distinction. If you're a woman taking PrEP, you've got to treat it just like you do taking the birth control pill. And you know, Marilyn, those first 30 days, you're not protected.
Yeah.
Different from men. A man can start taking PrEP and within 7 days be covered. A woman, it's 30 days, you've got to take it without fail. You know, there's also PEP, post-exposure prophylactic, that let's say you were out there and you didn't take your PrEP, or let's say you found yourself in a compromising position and there were no condoms and you didn't stop, that there's a potential for you to get PEP if you think you may have put yourself at risk. But this is why it's important to have these conversations with your healthcare providers. Because they should help you be able to navigate that scenario. This is why even our conversation today, hopefully, will shed light for someone to say, you know what, let me go get tested. It's free. On National HIV Testing Day and all of next week, I'm sure there's going to be a big push for CVS, Rite Aid, Walmart, all these places you can go and get a free HIV test.
Really? Wow, that's kind of like a flu shot at all those places. So there's no excuse. There's no
like
excuse.
COVID. There are places now you can go and get tested for coronavirus without a prescription, without going to your doctor's office. Because the reality, epidemics, pandemics, all adversely impact Black lives.
Black lives.
Which is why I said at the beginning, epidemics, pandemics, Black Lives Matter, HIV testing, coronavirus testing, they're all interrelated.
They're all intertwined. So let's talk about, how does systemic racism play into all of these pandemics? Clearly you and I and Dr. Jennings knows that, but let's talk about it. And specifically with the HIV, like you said, they're all connected. So we have systemic racism, and I know that as a country we're trying to address it. What are your thoughts on that?
So the reality is this: systemic racism has been in existence since we came to America by force in 1619. It became institutionalized as this block of land was colonized into a nation. I mean, yes, we moved away from being 3/5 of a person for census count.
Which we need to remind people of. We need to remind people of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Because it is the census count that determines the resources that come back to your local community for at least the next 10 years. And if we aren't counted, last 10 years ago, our numbers were almost 1 million undercounted in terms of Black people. We can't afford that. And that feeds into systemic racism. But systemic racism, you've got to look at it in light of white privilege. You've got to look at it in the face of implicit bias. And by the way, white people aren't the only ones that have implicit biases. We have them. Everyone has some. And if we truly want to live to be, as Dr. King worked for, the beloved community, we've got to be willing to look at our own biases.
Indeed.
And how do we address those to move towards a more inclusive society? Because there is evidence that shows when you are truly focused on diversity and inclusion and equity, that you welcome and you allow disparate voices, different voices from your own, to add value, to weigh in on the decision-making process of issues and things that you're looking at. And to the extent that you allow that to happen, you're in a much better place to, number one, come up with a more comprehensive solution to whatever problem you're trying to resolve that's going to help your organization continue to rise and grow faster, achieve more success. All those things that make business, that are the root of what a business wants to do, to grow and be profitable.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're right, the voices are important. All of the voices, white, Black, brown, pink, purple, I don't care, but all, and that's kind of what we're seeing now.
Disabled, LGBTQ, all of that.
All of it, and comprehensive, I love your word comprehensive, because we need comprehensive change. We don't need a Band-Aid on a situation.
Correct. That's what we've had for 400 years. Every time there's some big outbreak, we slap a Band-Aid on it. We hear the great messages. We hear who's giving money towards the cause. I'm looking at where's the follow through? Where's the proof in the pudding? Michael Jordan committed $100 million that comes at $10 million a year for the next 10 years. But where's the accountability measure that says that dollars are going at the local level on the ground to have impact? Right now, Congress has 2 bills that they're considering around this whole notion of racial justice. Now, one is sponsored by more inclusive thinking persons.
Right.
And one is sponsored by, let's just kind of keep things the way they are.
Right.
And
let's put a Band-Aid, let's throw money at the situation.
Not even throw money. Let's just say we're doing this, but it's not really shifting the needle on progress and inclusion and equity, which is what we need.
It is what we need. Absolutely.
One of the things that I think you're going to see is that, one of the tests of racism or systemic racism is what happens with COVID-19. I mean, when the disease first started, it was amongst people who had money, and they closed things down. And now Black and brown people have it, and they're opening things up. And they say, I think it was the governor of Florida said, well, it's the Hispanics that are causing it now. So already now we're scapegoating and pointing at people. What we need to do is watch out for what happens when we open up. And the power that we have in this system is to wear our masks, keep our 6 feet away, monitor where we go, wash our hands. Because if they're saying that only we get it, just like HIV, there's not going to be a real rush to cure it or to help us.
Well, the reality is this, I mean, and it's rapidly changing, is that when you look at the population of America, the majority of the population, well, let's say the America in power, they're not Black and brown people. They're
Well,
not
clearly.
people like us.
Well, clearly.
And yet they're the ones with the greater means to do. It's just like there was a story the other day, 16 Caucasian people went to celebrate something because things were open up and they all contracted COVID.
Mm-hmm.
All 16 of them.
Really?
You know, and you know, was it a wake-up call for them to say to their friends, hey, you better do this? I think our best approach is to follow the science.
Exactly.
What are the scientists saying we need to do to arrest this? It's unfortunate that we were not the first country to contract this, but we're now leading the world.
Absolutely. And
and death.
And in death, absolutely. And you know how we are as Black people. We adapt and we will make it work for us in order for us to survive, but we need legislation. And that's what I am so encouraged about moving forward, is that I think we're having meaningful legislation being made. But in terms of the mask conversation, just for a little bit of digression and fun, so masks are it's like a fashion statement now. I can't even tell you how many masks I've ordered from a friend.
I have some gorgeous, you know, I'm like, if I gotta wear one, I may as well look good.
I know, right? We have the bling mask. I was gonna get an.
I don't have a bling mask yet. I gotta get one of those.
Oh, okay. I'll call you. We'll work on that. I got a girl for you. But I'm having an Old Bay mask because you know how I love my crabs. An Old Bay mask. So all my girlfriends are like, oh yeah, I want the Old Bay mask. So it's just like,
hey, the organization mask, whatever. You know, right
now, name on it. I'm having one made for my father-in-law for Father's Day with his name on it. And because our family is so Christian, we're also having another one with Jesus on it, you know, and another one made with Christ. It's just, you know, it's a statement.
It is. It's a way to communicate a message. You know, I got to get me a hashtag BLM mask, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
You know, it's such an incredible opportunity for us to be engaged in a better future, raising our voices. You know, there's a quote by Dr. King who basically says, it's not the words of evil people that we will remember, but it's the silence of our friends. And in that, I think we all have a responsibility to raise our voices.
Indeed.
And in raising our voices, it's a call to action. So raise your voice and do something about it. And so I am just, you know, concerned about, I don't need to be out there with the protesters that are way too close in proximity and everyone's not wearing a mask. But it was Dr. Bernice King, who's running the King Center, who at 7 p.m., I think almost every evening they do an online protest. So whatever it takes to galvanize voices and people. And if we're galvanizing them, what's the call to action? The call to action is get tested. The call to action is complete your census. It takes minutes. The call to action is vote.
Yes.
Vote.
Yes.
Vote. This is the time.
Don't complain. Wait a minute. Don't complain. Vote.
You know, and to be vigilant in doing these things, because this is how we will change, or at least begin to change what's happening in America. You know, right now, science is saying we may hit 200,000 deaths by August.
Wow.
By the end of August. And, you know, it's mind-boggling. It really is.
It really, really is mind-boggling. I have to tell you, if we hit that many, also the protests and everything, so it's a double-edged sword. We protest or we don't. You know what I mean? We protest, but we have to wear our masks. We have to think about the science, as you said, you know, and we have to be out there and be out there safely, but we have to be out there. We can't let COVID scare us into being inside for the next, year and a half or however long it's going to take us.
But you can
Because in the next year and a half, how many more Black people will be killed at the hands of police violence?
But you can protest with your vote, and you can protest with your dollar, because we're talking about institutionalized racism. What is the institution? The institution, the foundation, is built on racism and money.
Yes.
So
green is the dominant race in America. Okay? Don't get it twisted. Green is the dominant race. And if we're to really participate, how do we get more of it, keep it circulating in our community before it leaves our community?
Yes. And and that's another thing that I was talking to actually a couple of white friends of mine, and they were asking, and how some folks are, it's like, how can we help? What can we do? They're all of a sudden having this great awakening about their privilege, right? And so I was like, well, we might have like a Blackout Tuesday, for lack of a better term. And I think it's going to be called Blackout Tuesday. But
there's a whole week slated starting on, I think, tomorrow. I think it's either tomorrow or Monday.
Oh, really? Someone
put out a list, I think I got it in Messenger, about a massive boycott to start. But here's the thing about boycotts. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take you back to 1950s with the Montgomery bus boycott that went on well over a year before they even got an opportunity to sit at a table and talk about injustice. It was the precursor to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, but that boycott took place in the late 50s. So you think about the time. What I learned on the city council is that the wheels of government turn much slower than the wheels on any other vehicle or institution. But you must be vigilant. So consistency is going to be key. And even with states opening up now, many of them are doing it in opposition to what the science shows, in opposition to what the results reveal. Yes, our economic state is in peril right now. It doesn't get better by putting more people at risk. It gets better by people understanding what we need to do to arrest this silent killer called Rona. Okay, Rona for short.
Rona, right? That's what we call it. That's what
I call a Rona.
Rona, right.
I'm working to Ronarize my life. Get her out.
I like that. Ronarize your life. And that's what we're doing all over the country. We are Ronarizing our lives because it's not going away anytime soon. And again, it disproportionately affects Black people. So when it comes to legislation, and that's a whole nother show, but grateful about the Supreme Court decisions that have been made.
Yes.
And there's another one coming up relative to, Trump trying to abolish Obamacare. Right. I mean, and I hate to, I don't hate to call it Obamacare because Obama has embraced it. He's like, I don't mind it being called Obamacare. So he's trying to, go to the Supreme Court to abolish that. But I absolutely don't think they will. And especially in this environment, you know what I mean? It's like, we need healthcare. We need to be able to get the tests, which people are making for free now, but even if someone doesn't go to someplace for free, we need to be able to make everything accessible to our people.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we're closing out, I know we're coming down on our time. I just want to ask people, if you want to find out more about how you can participate and be involved in National HIV Testing Day, please follow the National Organization of Black County Officials. We're on Facebook, and just look us up under either National Organization of Black County Officials or NOBCO, NOBCO. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. So look us up. We'll be pushing information out on how people can get involved and get engaged, and not just for National HIV Testing Day, but all year long, because until we can arrest the numbers in our community, we're putting our own economic viability at stake.
Yeah, and consistency is the key.
Absolutely.
And consistency. We need to, we can't wait until the cameras go off with all the stories and then go to sleep on it, because it's just going to come back again. I mean, and historically, that's kind of sort of what we've been doing for the last years, but we have been protesting, we have been fighting. I mean, naming that bridge, what is it, in New York, or where is it, in Alabama, after John Lewis, is a really, really big step.
In Selma.
It's Selma, Alabama, right? Exactly.
I've walked that bridge.
Have you?
Yes, I have. Yes,
Wow,
I
that
have.
has been amazing.
I've been to Brown Memorial AME Church, which was the hosting place for that Selma, that walk across that Edmund Pettus Bridge many years ago. And just the rich history there, you know, which just begs another piece when we talk about education. We've got to tell the truth. We've got to tell the history that public education isn't willing to stand up and tell if we truly are to see Black people understand why this is so important, why our engagement matters, why knowing the facts beyond the rhetoric make a difference in moving us forward. Our health is our greatest wealth, and the only way we can make it better is by talking about it, doing something about it, getting tested, holding our healthcare professionals accountable, holding their feet to the fire, and our legislators. Because if healthcare isn't readily accessible and affordable, we find ourselves right back at the end of the barrel. Being poor should not be a reason that you don't have healthcare. Not in America.
Not in America, absolutely. We cannot be there. And our healthcare professionals are key. I got a voicemail message from my healthcare professional saying, if you can't come in and you don't feel comfortable coming in, because we're seeing people, in socially distancing, then we will do a virtual exam for you.
That's telehealth. I had my checkup telehealth with my doctor on the phone. Of course, he then sent me off to the lab to have x-rays and things done. But the point being, take advantage of technology and look at how the digital divide, just another tool that keeps us at the bottom. These are the issues that, what I love about COVID is that it yanked the covers off of the false reality we were living and said racial injustice.
It's true.
Is what we need to be fighting against.
It did. You're right. That's a really good analogy, Helen, because it yanked the covers off. Because a lot of us in America want to put our head under the covers. It's like, okay, we're okay. Okay, we've got a job. That's somebody else's problem. But this situation yanked the covers off. Mm-hmm. George Floyd situation, the Breonna Taylor, everybody.
All of them. Oh, too many names to mention. Racial justice and economic opportunity are the reparations of the 21st century.
Absolutely.
I don't think anyone's ever gonna give you 40 acres and a mule today. But if we can get to a place of racial justice and economic opportunity and inclusion and equity, we can begin to shift the plight of Black America.
And that's true. And we will do another show on reparations because I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Because, if we can get like COVID-19 checks, or what is that? The checks that everybody in America is probably getting in order to
at the lower end of the economic ladder, which we should be giving, but we still have to be mindful of what's going to lift our economy to a place where we're including more Americans. And it begins with racial justice. It begins with cultural competency training. It begins with implicit
key.
I mean, it begins with opening up those biases and having those conversations and helping Caucasians to feel comfortable enough to talk about the white privilege that's at the expense of the rest of us that do not fit that group.
Yeah, I think there are more people becoming aware, more Caucasians becoming aware of the fact that white privilege is something that they have taken for granted and that they have stood on the backs of Black people for years and Hispanics. Are you kidding me? I mean, how many people are getting the grass cut? I mean, that's why the whole DACA thing has been so important.
Grass cut, hotel rooms clean,
right? Exactly.
Garbage collected. I mean, come on, you name it. Concrete poured. I mean, whatever it is, we are the essential. We're the foundation of our economy in terms of essential functions that we want performed.
We keep it moving.
And that we don't take care of the people. Where's a living wage that means you can live above the poverty level when you go to work every day? Yes. Where's adequate education for our children that we don't have the money to send them to private schools and we're relegated to public education. It's across the board.
It's across the board. Dr. Helen Holton, who is the executive director of, okay, you say it because I'll mention
the National Organization of Black County Officials.
And an HIV advocate.
Yes.
HIV advocate, but
Among other things, but
HIV
definitely
testing
that.
advocate, among other things, and as well, a minister who loves
Yes.
the Lord and will pray for all of us.
My journey as an ambassador of love to humanity.
Indeed, indeed. Tell us where to get in touch with you the best way.
The best way to get in touch with me is the best way to get
you have so many
on social media is on social media. Look me up on social media.
Right.
Dr. Helen Holton. Look me up on social media.
Dr. Helen Holton, absolutely. And we'll get led to all of
Yeah,
you.
I gotta send you all the things to find us, or go to our webpage, nobco.org. N-O-B as in boy, C as in Charlie, O.org.
Absolutely.
And you get to us.
Nobco.org.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. And you know that on Urban Health, you know that laughter is the best medicine. So I'm going to ask you, in the interest of medicine,
Uh-oh.
okay, when they take an appendix out, it's called an appendicitis. When they take nails out, I guess it's called a manicure. But what happens when you take a growth out of the head?
A lobotomy?
No, it's called a haircut.
Marilyn, I was way.
You
Garry,
too deep there, Helen.
I see, I know. I just can't figure out where she gets these jokes from. You know, Romper Room is gone and Mr. Rogers isn't on anymore, so I don't know where she's pulling them from.
Yeah, I've been looking for that spot too.
Okay, it's my special secret. But thank you so much for Dr. Helen Holton, and look her up.
Thank you for having me. We'll do this again soon. Thank you both.
It's always a pleasure. So you've been listening to Urban Health, the show that features your mind, body, and spirit. And until next time, remember that your good health is a work in progress. So work it.
Work it.